Also, can you see the poster behind?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
it's visible.
So what I understand, my speech is not that important, right?
Please continue.
Okay, so no, now I will let Camille present the company, the show, probably her experience also in some other city in India, and what she wants to do in Pune.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Same here.
So I'm one of the two directors of the company. Our company is called RoZéO. And gratte-ciel in France, it means two things. It means, it's the word for a skyscraper, but it also means to scratch the sky. And this is exactly who we are and what we do. We perform aerial performance in urban landscapes most of the time, outdoors. We do performances for public spaces because we believe that it is important for art to also be accessible for everybody and free. And the other meaning of our name, to scratch the sky, is exactly the DNA of our company. We are a company who come from the mountains. A lot of members of our companies have a past as rock climbers or alpinists, and their environment for being is the open air and altitude. We have derived the techniques of extreme sports into performance, live performance. And all of the work we do is about our relationship with the open air and the air in general. We usually do very large-scale shows. Hello.
Everybody, you can understand, right?
You know, these shows are often suspended under cranes or rigged between buildings. They are very big performances. And recently, in the COVID years, we created a much smaller show called RoZéO, which is the one that will be performed here tomorrow in Pune. And this show is very much about who we are, what we believe in, and that relationship with the air. We have wanted to go to something much more intimate and close to the audience, and that talks about our relationship with nature. 1 year ago, a lady called Sanjana, who is the director of the Alliance Française in Jaipur, saw a video, saw an image on Instagram of the show and wrote to us and said, I want to present this in India.
And was the best idea ever.
And 1 year later, here we are in India with this show for a month. It's the first time the company has come to India, and it's the first time this show is being presented in Asia. We've started our tour with performances in Chandigarh, then Jaipur. This week we were in Ahmedabad. Tomorrow we are performing here, and then we are doing one last performance in Pondicherry.
She wants to know about the artists, who they are and how many.
Okay. So in the show you'll see tomorrow, there are 3 artists. Danilo, who's originally from Brazil, but he studied in a circus school in France, and he's now living in France, and he's working with us for the last 3 years. Then Camille and Claire are the other 2 performers on the poles. And Camille and Claire They started working with us only 6 months ago, because when we were invited by Thomas Joly, the director of the opening ceremony of the Paris Games, Thomas Joly invited us to perform in the opening ceremony, and he said, I would like to have your poles on a bridge on the Pont Neuf in Paris, but not 3 like we have in our show. I would like 18. And we said, no problem. And then we went, okay. So we had to train 15 new artists in the space of 3 months in that technique on our 6-meter poles. And Claire and Camille are 2 of the 15 new artists that we have trained this year, specifically for the Olympic Games. But they have now joined the show RoZéO, because RoZéO is now touring so much that although there are always 3 artists performing in the show, now we have 7 who are able to do the show and rotate depending on availability. So the 3 artists on the poles that you will see here tomorrow were all 3 at the Paris Olympic opening ceremony. And they are accompanied by a live musician called Pauline. And Pauline composed the music for the performance, and she's also playing it live. And the music is a very important part of the show. It was created also inspired by the environment. So she took some time by the sea, next to volcanoes, in forests, in a lot of different natural environments, to observe the movement of the environment and used her observations to write the sound score.
So how many days?
So it takes about 2 weeks for a performer to learn how to perform on the pole, but just to learn the technicalities of the pole. Then it's usually another 10 days to learn the performance itself, the one that we are doing tomorrow that is choreographed. You will see that Danilo now has developed some very specific tricks on the poles, because he's been working with these poles for the last 3 years with us. It's a very unusual movement, and it uses very unusual muscles and parts of the body that a circus performer is not used to using normally, because the 2 legs are attached, so the legs cannot move, and it's only the top part of the body that can be moved to express feelings or for the choreography, but also to create the swaying movement on the poles.
Actually, ma'am, we have
when the COVID happened in France, and I believe it was the same year, everything stopped. And we could not travel anymore, we could not tour our shows anymore, and we had to stay on location. What happened to us is that we took the time again to look at trees, to look at birds, to look at clouds, and reconnect with emotions that we feel when we slow down, when we look at nature, and when we take the time. Our daily lives, and I know you know this because in India it is insane. Everything is so fast, loud, crazy. We are constantly bombarded with information and images. And when this happens, we lose touch with deeper emotions that happen when we let ourselves go into much more ancestral feelings and our connections with nature. And when the COVID happened, we really spent a lot of time slowing down and reconnecting with those types of feelings. And they are very important to us. You know, when you climb to the top of a mountain and you sit and you look at the horizon, the inner peace that this creates is a very important feeling, because these feelings also make us quieter and more at peace people.
So the sports is a part of your culture?
So before the COVID, we had made this pose for one of our new shows, which is very big, very loud, very colorful, very in your face. And we had to pause the creation of this show for the COVID. So we decided in that moment to take our new poles and take the time to train on them. We had to learn how to use them. So we put them in a field where we live, and we just spent many days. And what happened is we recreated some of the movement of the environment just with these poles in the landscape. And this is when we said, okay, we are going to make a show about this. It's not part of the French culture, but it is part of the historical tradition of circus. Nowadays, contemporary circus is no longer using this, but these apparatus, these poles, were used 100 years ago in the early days of circus. And this is something that we have found very interesting, to revisit this tradition from circus that is being forgotten a little bit, and that we want to revisit, maybe with a more conceptual or a more contemporary approach. So this is one of the less risky performances that we do. It's the most safe thing that we do in all of our shows.
नवनवीन बातम्या बघण्यासाठी आमच्या चॅनलला सबस्क्राइब करायला विसरू नका.